good evening, everybody, and thank you for all coming tonight. And for those of you out there on Facebook land or Channel 3, tonight it's my pleasure to introduce a man who probably needs no introduction, certainly in Spencer and in other places. But Steve is a past worshipful master of the Masonic Temple. The temple is now 150 years old, and it's in spectacular shape. Thanks in very large part to an awful lot of labor by one guy. But before we go any further, there'll be, for those of you who are here Tuesday night or have been here in years previous, we need the mic. If you've got a question when the Q&A opens, Maureen's got one on that side of the room and I'll have it on this side. So if you have a question, we'll go from there. But without any further ado, let me give the lectern, to Steve.
Thank you, Tom. I guess the volume on this is just right. I think I got it all in the right place and everything here. And appreciate the opportunity here this evening. I want to thank everybody for affording the opportunity to share some history on the Masonic Temple, which is located at 103 East 4th Street, kind of a walk down memory lane as I put down here. And a special thank you goes out to Braden Faline from the Clay County Heritage Museum, Anna Harmon with the City of Spencer, and of course you just listened to a very intellectual introduction by Tom Howe, was also instrumental in this. And of course, there's always some ladies in the background that you got to rely on, which is Becky Woolery, and of course, a family member will be back shortly, Joan Waller. They were very instrumental in helping put some of this material together tonight, and hopefully we can share history on this building. There's some individuals here tonight that are also recently new members of our organization. And I'm sure they'll find it quite interesting. I have not been at the membership in the organization maybe quite as long as maybe Tom or Glenn here in the room. So I don't know how Tom twisted my arm to do this evening, so appreciate that again, Tom. I'll remember that. So to kind of start this here, and hey, this is going to work all right. This photo I was able to, and I wish my sister was here because we've been having a debate. As you can see, the entrance to the south faces down those large steps, and then from the west was a door there, you can see it, and the steps, and on the east side there was also doors and steps, and that was your access to this building. It was after construction in 1916. So, and I will go back to that when Joan comes back, because there's been a discussion on another door on the west side of the building. So, and historically, Masonic temples, Masons were located above downtown businesses in every community. And again, I just took another, I think Braden had this, and these trees, I think it go back for what, it doesn't have any significance to the building, but that was 1993. Those trees were painted. And there's your south entrance again. Take a look at the windows. As you can see, there's no curtains, no blinds or anything in this earlier era. So as I said, historically, Masonic temples were located in a downtown above a local business, and here's one that's still in existence today. You can see the entrance from the outside, and then up on the upper right there is the Masonic temple with the emblems of the organization. And there's a dark spot in the center that would be usually their lights that indicate what organization is meeting. We'll show you what we used to have here in Spencer. And
Steve, where's that at?
I knew somebody would ask. I did not get permission, but I was in Alta here 3 weeks ago. So I plagiarized and went outside, because I'll show you a couple other locations also. And so there's your entrance. And we never think anything about access to facilities anymore until you want to visit or use the facility. And this is a stairwell as you come up into that facility, and see on the one side there's that railing with those little chair seats. And that's how, as your membership gets older, or general public gets older, it's for them to navigate the stairs. That's, of course, those are narrow stairs to put a little seat in there. So, but that's in Alta until you answer your question. Okay. And this happened in Spencer, the upper level of the Clay County Courthouse, which was located, I have 115, but the top of the photo has 108 Grand Avenue. I don't know, does Glenn or Tom remember that? No, you don't either, okay. And so, so again, that's how it started. So the courthouse at that time wasn't big enough. So they decided they were going to build a new courthouse. So they removed the upper half of that building and they moved it to the top of that building. Does anybody know what that building is? It's still in town today. Yep, Peterson Electric at 11 West 2nd Street. And you can see where that door on the west side, I would assume that was the access to what they called the Masonic Temple. And there's the front of it. That's on West 2nd, it's not on Main Street, so it's not eligible for any upgrades. And then after they were there from 1892 until 1913, located at that location there at Peterson Electric, a steering committee set forth to construct the Masonic Temple at its current location as you know it today. And so that's where they had the Grand Lodge officers come, and they had a dedication, and they place a cornerstone. They laid the cornerstone in the building, and that's what that ceremony is in the corner there where they're kneeling down. And so it's kind of interesting. Mm-hmm.
Do they still wear those black uniforms?
Those black uniforms. Though back in that era, that was probably overcoats, Merlin. And due to the temperature, I don't think I have one of a York-Rite uniform. They still wear the York-Rite uniforms today, but customarily in a lodge meeting, if it's an official meeting, they'll wear kind of a black, dark suit, white shirt, black bow tie. Mm-hmm. So that's when it got started at its current location. And at that time, they had a steering committee just like you do today, and you put together a cost estimate and stumbled onto this. I don't know if anybody can see it. Maybe Greg over here can see down there. I think it says total cost of the maintenance of the temple for 1916. What was it? Yeah, the cost to complete the building was $37,825. Oh, that's all right. So it's kind of interesting to go back and find those things, but we're going to scan back here real quick to show this building on the west side here. There it was. So there's only one door on the west side. That steps in that door there. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I don't think you could build that building today, could you, Andrew?
No. No, that'd be hard to do.
So I found that interesting. The construction, I called it four-level building, started in 1914 through 1915 at its current location. The first meeting was held on September 18th, 1916. After the building, there's a photo of it in 1937. That would be from the east. And this next one is 1938. So it's pretty much the same structure. Nothing has really changed. Again, the windows, there's no curtains, there's no blinds or anything. On that first meeting, there's various organizations within the Masonic Temple Association, totaled 440 men and women in 1916. In 1980, there was 700. And today, there's about 260 of both men and women of all of the organizations that utilize the building. The structure as it sits is actually 108 years old. It was commissioned or dedicated in 1915. And we did, like I said, we describe it as 4 levels. Does anybody know what that building to the east of it is? All right, very good. There'll be a test later tonight, so. It does? Oh, you got pretty good eyes, Nancy. All right. As we enter the building from the south entrance, you can see the staircase goes to level 3, which is the meeting room or lodge room. And that staircase is as it is today. Nothing has changed. There is no replacement stairs or handrails or anything. And the quarter round along the walls there is still intact. There's another shot of that. Born Bernstedt, immigrated from Norway in the late 1870s. He was a master builder and a cabinet maker in Norway. He built the Little Sioux Lutheran Church in the late 1800s and did all of the woodwork in the new Masonic temple that you're seeing there. He also did all the interior woodwork on the Higgins Mansion and built the home on Grand Avenue, currently owned by Dick and Mary Jean Montgomery. So, and that gentleman happens to be related to Tom Howe. Are you that craftsman too on woodworking? You are. On this level has 2 sitting rooms on each side of that stairwell, the west and east side, with a fireplace in each room. There's your west side, and you can see, of course, that furniture was not there in 1916. That was acquired back in probably 1993 out of Stylecraft Furniture in Milford. But each one of them has a sitting room. And again, all of the woodwork of the walls are all the same. But you can see now in these windows on the inside, you can see drapes and blinds or shades. On the level behind the staircase, we call that the dining room. I think a number of you probably had an opportunity to be in the dining room. And on the way to this dining room, there were 2 coat check windows, which were used when activities were held over the years. Per Anita Wentland, it was the social center for events. And that's what the looks like on each side of that stairwell. And I believe that's the west side. You can't see it. There's a rotary phone that sits there on the shelf. Those windows open. And in the early years, Spencer Middle School, youth look forward to teen dances held on Friday and Saturday nights per Catherine Johnston. She used to mention to me that she looked forward to coming over there in that dining room. They'd have teen dances, and you'd check your coat or hat in those 2 coat check rooms, kind of like one of the ballrooms, Clear Lake, for example. And not only did the building offer meetings for the organizations that were designated, but over the years, the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts held meetings, hosted Pinewood Derbies in the dining room. And of course, the Spencer Chamber Ag Breakfast has been held over the years there. And I think we could seat approximately 106 in that dining room, and we feed almost 600 to 1,000 rotating through on the Ag Breakfast. The Masonic Temple itself has hosted spaghetti dinners, pancake breakfasts, Santa activities, and even funeral services over the years. In addition to these activities, the Masonic orders also hosted formal organizational activities attended then and now by persons from all over the state and even out of state. So used to be quite the formal attire when they'd have a regular, like a black tie event, and they'd host that there in the dining room and have the coat check. On this next photo, as you can see, the brass electrical plates are still in place throughout the building, as well as exit lights and bulbs, and I'll show you those later. These brass plates are original ones installed, and it's kind of interesting because we removed all those brass plates, or somebody did. In 2013 and 14, we did a 2.5-year restoration of the interior for the 100-year anniversary. So all the woodwork that you see around, all those brass plates, they were all restained, and the brass plates, like in the military, you use Brasso to shine those and reinstall them back to get ready for the 100-year anniversary. So this was a level 1. We dropped down into what we call the game card room. Consists of a shuffleboard, billiard tables, and card tables. You can see the shuffleboard and the billiard tables and nice cushioned seats there. Members used to spend their lunch hour playing billiards. There's a wire above the table where those balls are, and if anybody's familiar with playing billiards, when you scored, you put a red ball in the pocket, you went up and you moved a little round. That was your point. You kept track that way. Of course, if you scratched, you moved one back. And there were cue racks on the walls, like so. And each member usually had their own cue stick, and they locked it in the rack. At the top, there's a little key up there, so it just couldn't walk in and use somebody's cue stick. Everybody had their own cue, and they made sure that it was locked up and secured, and they came down, and everybody had their own key. And also back here, I can remember, this was a smoking room. I didn't smoke, but also pipes, cigars, and you can also see over on the west side there's another fireplace. Each side in the basement and the sitting rooms had fireplaces. So, and on the other side of level 1, it's my understanding they had 2 bowling alleys with manual pin setters. I don't know if anybody's familiar with a manual pin setter. Somebody has to set at the back and pick the ball up, roll it back out to the person, and you have to pick the pins up and set them by hand. One was on the one side of those poles and the other one on the other side of those poles. And so the only thing that I can confirm, there are bowling pins there and bowling balls, so we could set them up if you wanted to experience it, but there's no alleys. And I think the bowling alleys had to be removed prior to 1974, unless somebody here remembers the bowling alleys. Do you do? What year were they removed? Have any idea?
No, I don't.
Okay. And down at the far end there, you'll see that one small door there, and you'll see that later in the presentation. That's going to be the entry door at that level to the elevator. So access to all levels was by the stairs that you just saw. In 1980, the building added an outside fire escape to ensure an outlet from the upper level. And the cost is about $7,500. And of course, the exterior metal doors are hard to keep cleaned up, but that was added there in 81 because there was no egress from that upper level there. All right. Due to the aging membership of the organization, an elevator was installed by DeLoss Construction here in Spencer. This was placed on the west side of the building with a new entrance from the outside in 1981, and it looks like that. And the cost of that was about $48,675. That was the elevator, the shaft, and so forth. And that west entrance then was added around August 6th in about $2,900 so that you could get in there with a wheelchair or handicap walker or something of that nature. And then in 1997, the east entrance was enclosed by Rabel Construction. As you can see, it slopes down there. There was just the steps going into the east kitchen door, as we called it, and decided to enclose that in 1981 or 1997 for around $14,000. We get into level 3, is known as the Lodge Meeting Room, and other Masonic bodies used or continue to use were D. Malay, Rainbow, Order of Eastern Star, and York Rite bodies. D. Malay Dad Alden Avery, in the 1960s, he was very active, and this is a group of young men that their meeting room paralleled the adults' meeting room as well as Rainbow. And these two organizations were ages 13 to 18 for the young men for D. Malay, and the young ladies aged 12 to 18 for Rainbow. So there's just I wouldn't know any of those individuals.
Well, one of them's a Hagedorn, I think, up in the middle on the top. The tallest one.
Lowell?
Could be. What year was this?
It had to be.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to-
No, it's fine, 1960,
Yeah.
somewhere around then.
That'd be
That'd be John.
Oh, it'd be their son. Okay. All right. That was up in there because they had a very active, Alden Avery was very active with the young fellas.
Actually, it was Daddy.
Was it Dad Avery? Okay. I got D. Malay Dad, Alden Avery. Then they met in what we call the D. Malay room. That's a west room upstairs. That's kind of set up in parallels, like I said, the adult room. Those pictures on the wall over there of Templar Park up in Spirit Lake. And here is another photo of that stairway from level 3 looking down. And again, that woodwork is all the same. Nothing has been replaced. And it's all had a refurbishing. In the lodge room, as we know it, there is, that's looking at the east. And this is another of that room. And this is looking to the west. And we'll go back up there in the corner, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a door that's open, and that has a projector in it. And that was used for the various portions of the organizational meetings, and it projects just like a 35 millimeter photograph out on the wall, and it still operates today. And slides are in a wood, you know, your little 35 millimeter is like so. This is in a wood casing, sitting in a box, and they're still there, ready if anybody wanted to use those today. We'll go back here. On the sides, you'll see those red chairs. There's been many updates, like we've been seeing curtains, carpet, and theater-style chairs. There's approximately 84 theater chairs there, and there's a balcony right behind that red curtain up there, because they used to have to use that balcony when they had formal activities. And there's 48 seats up in that balcony, so it can hold quite a few. And it's interesting, I don't know if anybody here was part of the crew, but those seats were carried in that building from that south entrance up the steps into that room. There was no elevator. So, which was a nice addition to have those comfortable chairs. And as you can see, I don't know, that carpet looks green. That's a blue carpet. It's a very nice carpet. That was installed in February of 1984, and it is still there today, and it hasn't shown hardly any wear through the course of the years. This, also, you can see those 3 dividers there between those columns. Those can also be raised up, and there's a stage behind that to also provide for additional seating in the facility. I didn't raise it up, but that's what that is with that little red curtain there. You raise those up and you can place probably another 30, 35 chairs up there. And that has been used over the course of time also. And what's interesting, of course, when the building was constructed, there was no air conditioning. The building was heated with coal, then a steam heat, and it was converted to a hot water boiler system that we have today. And as you can imagine, it became very hot in that building because heat rises. Open the windows, and there was a dormer on the top of the north roof there, the center of the lodge. Right there. There's lights up there, but that dark spot in the center, that's the opening, and that could be opened and release the warm air. And there was a dormer up there, and we still have that. We haven't donated that to the museum yet. We'll let you have that while you're here. That sat on top of that roof, and then you'd open that from the inside, and then that's, people can't believe we still have that. I don't know why I still got it. So I had to rely on Andrew Halsey a little bit, but the building was constructed in brick, lath, and plaster. There's no sheetrock or insulation in the walls whatsoever. Interesting, on heat in the earlier years, the cool air went through columns, the gray sections on that building, down to the basement, and the heat from the furnace then to the radiators, which were placed under each window. And you can't see the radiators there, but under the windows there was always a radiator throughout the whole building. As the heat rose, it could become very hot, and then they opened the damper to release that heat on the north roof, as we call it. There's 2 roofs, the north roof over this portion, and then where the entrance is, and we'll show you on one of the slides later. The design was pretty unique in 1916, using natural ventilation, is what Andrew said. Thank you. Then construction, we seen that they were, as you said, making the buildings very tight. They couldn't breathe. And now structures are reverting back to that natural ventilation system. So back in 1916, whoever was the architect, and we still have the original plans in the building when that was constructed. So in 2012, a new air conditioner system was installed with heat pumps. This provides cool air to level 3, which is the lodge room, and can be converted down to level 2, which is the dining room. And that cost was about $18,380. There's the heat pumps and the AC units there. And might as well, you'll see this again, but look above those windows. You'll see all those windows bricked in. Those are right on the other side of this. Where those, I gotta get back to the other, where the gray areas were on the other side here, right there. Those red curtains, that's where all those windows were bricked up on the outside. And I think that's when that was accomplished. They lost their historical designation because we altered the outlook of the building. Because everybody asked, why isn't it on a historical register? The only thing that's historical in the facility is the individuals that are members, age-wise. Tom?
Why did they break those up?
I suppose heat loss. They had aluminum-style storm windows on there, and those wood windows are single pane, and they got the weights and balance inside when you raise them up. And so that's the north side of the building, and there's nothing over there to block the northwest wind, I'm assuming. So that's why it was probably bricked up. That brings us to level 4, as we call it, and I think Nancy was talking about this earlier this evening, which was used by what we call York Rite members to store their uniforms, their chapeau, which is their hat, sword, and leather harness. They were stored in individual cedar closets, as you can see there. And they had their own locks on those. They had their own suitcase to carry their uniform and their attire. And that's still intact up there. It's not used, of course. As I said, throughout the building, there's exit lights were installed above the doors with red bulbs, and there's a light switch that turns those on. So that was asked when I was putting this together. You can see above those 2 doors there, those are red exit lights, and usually they're throughout the entire building. They're still there. They haven't been removed or changed or altered. Alls I know is I'm very careful not to break one of them, because those globes above those large lights, there's smaller ones down there, as you can see. I did have to admit I did break one of those, and I haven't been able to find a replacement for those. They're hard to come by. This completes the internal aspects of the Masonic Temple. We'll review the building outside, starting with the south entrance. Lights were attached above the door entrance when a meeting was being held. So these were the organizations that were very active over the course of these years, and the majority of them are still active, and that's the emblem that denotes that organization. And those, as you can see, they were placed right above that center window section there. There used to be a guide wire that came out, and there was I suppose a pole, and they all screwed into this pole, a bracket, and there was a switch inside down the downstairs entry there that you'd switch on if it was, for example, the one on the far left. Which one is that? And you'd throw the switch on, it would light that globe up outside, so if somebody was coming to attend a meeting there from another community, they could drive by and they could see that that organization was having their meeting that night or a special activity. So, okay. I'd be Knights Templar, and the third one is, or the fourth one is, yeah, and the last one is York Rite Bodies. York Rite Bodies on the one on the far right, the Masons, Even Shade Lodge, and the fourth one, Templar, White Shrine, and then Order of Eastern Star. And I don't know if you saw that frontage of the Alta Lodge. They had similar there on that one. They didn't have as many. They only had 2, I think. In 1999, the front porch was restored because over time, Mike Shoemaker Construction, we put the facing around each side and concreted the base up there at the top, and for around $13,000. And of course, with a building like this, in 2002 through about 2008, tuck pointing was completed on all sides, north, east, west, and south side of the building, because it needs that if you're going to preserve that building. And that was around $31,000 to do all that tuck pointing at that time. And this west entrance was then bricked in, and the steps were removed also. And in or 2010, Bob Rose came and said, at that time, we were thinking about, what we're going to do with this building. It takes a lot to maintain it, and keep it up, and there was a storefront initiative program going on in Spencer, and he asked about, would we be interested in that program, a 0% 10-year program. So we replaced all the storm windows on the building. They used to be a real thin aluminum storm window that really didn't help keep out the cold. I think I've replaced or painted them 3 times in the course of my years here, all the way up to the 4th level and down. But those were wood storm windows installed in 2010 through that storefront, which was a cost of about $32,000. Even though we were a block off grand, it I think is a good investment, and Spencer's always been proud of their facilities and try and keep them. So, you've seen the lodge, how it exists today. Here's the one again, that inside photos of that one that down there in Alta. It's a little smaller, kind of hard to maybe get around, and once the lodge goes dark or they're no longer able to stay active, a lot of them have sold their property and moved from that upper level, so they go to a single 1-story, so it's easy accessed, and this is a current one that's been built in the last 5 years. You know where that one's at, Nancy?
Cedar Lakes.
Spirit Lake. So, this one here happens to be an old Masonic temple. There's only a few multi-level lodges left in Iowa, and Spencer being one of those. This used to be in downtown Des Moines. It has been since sold, and I believe it's a performing arts center down there that they host concerts and other activities, and they still have a lot of the original architectural design that you've seen with Spencer. And then I should say, Miss Harlan was nice enough to go back and find this. I gave her 4 cities that still have multi-level lodges. This is Cedar Rapids in 1884, so the design is kind of the same. And this is the Cedar Rapids or Grand Lodge as it is in 55. And then this is the inside of that. And this one here is, does anybody have any idea where that's located at? It's still there today. Sioux City. And it's multi-level, has the same interior, similar to ours, but they've had experienced the same difficulty of maintaining a boiler system and heating system there. This one here is Mason City. So that's kind of a comparable. We're pretty fortunate in Spencer to have our 108-year-old facility. It is very functional, and it's very nice when we have individuals that come to utilize it or visit an activity here. Recently, we just had a activity that was attended by individuals from eastern Iowa, southeast Iowa, western Iowa, and so they decided to take a group picture. There might be a couple individuals in there you might know. Who's the guy in the center? And there's your current facility as we know it today, with curtains and shears in there. And everything in the original woodwork, again, is the same as installed in 1916. As a whole, the building has not settled or shifted in all these years. In 2012, again, the building committee started restoration, the painting and touch-up of the entire building. That was a 2.5-year project. finally in 2015, we had a 100-year anniversary, was held with a rededication. And that kind of gives you a recap of the building as it sits today. And with that, I guess I'd try and answer any questions anybody might have. And again, thank you to everybody that provided data on this.
Steve, talk about the temple apartments.
Well, I gotta take a big drink. Okay, now you're gonna open up something here. Years ago, as you've seen, the facility here, the Masonic Temple, to heat that building before we put in a new boiler, and we figured out what was, the radiators have, I call it like a thermostat in a car. And there's a rubber, like in your thermostat, and there's an O-ring around it. If that wears out, it'll either, that thermostat sticks open, or it'll stick shut. If it sticks open, guess what? You just got a runaway radiator and heat. So the heat bills back in the 80s and 90s were terrible, so we had to do something. And of course, you've seen the membership tonight. The operation of the facility is based on membership, your dues. So Spencer, again, some of the members had the foresight years ago when the Temple Apartments, or the Ashley Hotel, became available for sale. They decided to purchase that and hopefully use that for their membership if somebody needed a living accommodations or help defray some of the operating expense of the Masonic Temple, which has been a good decision on behalf of the organization. At the same time, the parking lot between the two buildings was paved by Barry DeLoss. It used to be gravel. And so they went hand in hand, and that's where the Temple Apartments came into light.
Any idea how many apartments?
In the 113 East 4th Street, there's 14 units there. They're all one-bedroom units and with standalone showers and standalone bathrooms. Mhm.
Who lives in them?
Just different people.
There's various individuals. They're usually single individuals because it's a one-bedroom unit, so it only accommodates a single individual. So they have various ages of those individuals, both men and women. So
I don't remember what you said about what year this building was built, the main building.
1916, it was the first meeting. It was built in 1915.
15?
They finished it in 1950.
Okay.
And the question was,
I'm sorry.
when was the original Masonic Temple built? They started in 1914 and finished it in 15 and dedicated it and had their first meeting, I think November of 1916.
How does one become a Masonic Temple member?
To become a member of the Masons or the Order of Eastern Star, all you have to do is be invited to join and just make application, and it's reviewed by the membership, and then they vote on.
Invited?
Nope, nope, nope. You can ask yourself. Yourself can ask, and we would entertain your application or interest.
I understood you had to be asked.
Years ago, yes, Merlin, that was very true. It was, everybody, I should throw this word out there, thought it was a cult over the years, okay? And there was a time when, yes, you had to be asked, and a lot of people did not want to join because they felt if they weren't asked, why would I want to join? So, but that's changed over the years, and the same way, to become a member of Eastern Star, you have to have Masonic affiliations to join Eastern Star or become an Eastern Star member. So,
I mean that, that's the woman's job.
yes, that's on the we call it the ladies'
She
side,
had
but
to be related, she had to be related to a Masonic Temple
yeah, a
person?
Masonic affiliation, yes.
All right.
Through a grandfather, through a father, through a sister, through a mother.
Stepchildren, grandchildren,
Mhm.
nieces, nephews.
Okay.
Mhm. And then DMLA was the start of, for men, they were 13 to 18, And then after age 18, they could go into lodge. Rainbow was 12 to 18, the same thing for the ladies there.
Steve, who's your favorite rainbow girl?
Let's see, there must be a Spencer Main Street director in Spencer, Iowa by the name of Nancy Nave.
Nancy, I think you should talk about Rainbow, because it was a big deal.
God, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Joni, you should talk about rainbow girls.
I wasn't in Rainbow here, I was in Rainbow in another town, so I don't know exactly what you did here.
So we all wore white dresses, and it was very ceremonial. In the there was different stations, and I went to the state immortality. So I represented immortality on the state level. That's all I got.
Well, that's good. See?
Demalay and Rainbow joined together a lot. I think they had dances and all kinds of
Mhm.
things. In the temple down in the dining room and stuff. And I went on to bring across the colors, so at a state level, it's kind of, it's a nice organization, it's too bad we don't have it for kids nowadays. I do think that the temple apartments were actually prior to our ownership. The Spencer School of Business had their dorms there back in the late 60s, early 70s. 68, yes, that was a good year. He did, honest to God, I know, 'cause I loved him.
Very good.
I was a rainbow girl, and my dad was a Mason, and you had to be invited. We did, to join. And when I got there, I didn't know if I really liked it because they could blackball you, you know.
Really?
Absolutely, and they did some of those girls. So I thought it was really kind of a snobbish thing. That was not, what'd you say? What'd you say? Oh, yeah, yeah, they let Nancy in, huh? Yeah, that was out in Washington State where I was then, but with my folks. But yeah, it was, things were different back then.
Yeah, they were.
And then
now-
the little cars at the fair, isn't that through the Masonic Lodge? The ones that spin around and, what is that?
Not at
Rat
the,
Patrol, that's out of Sioux City.
that's Sioux City, the probably
Oh.
Rat Patrol. You're talking like the little go-karts?
Yeah, and they go around and
That's
around.
called the Rat Patrol out of Ackerbecker Temple in Sioux City.
But isn't that Masonic?
It is.
Yeah,
It's
okay,
It's a subsidiary of the
Okay.
Ackerbecker Shrine Temple in Sioux City.
all right.
But
Very
you're
good.
right, what
Thank
you
you.
said about the membership, and now all of that work, as they used to say, was secretive,
Very much so.
and we can't divulge that.
That's right.
But you go on the internet now, and what you've seen tonight, you're going to see even more about that. And it goes into some of the questions that were asked.
I think that's why they thought maybe the Masons were, as you say, a cult, because everything was so secret. So secret, yeah.
But you can look at it on the internet now.
Yeah, but it's different now. Here, take this mic away from me.
Yeah. Merlin would like it.
You know, and it brings up a good point that on Saturday is the umpteenth upper level cruise, and so if you have never been in the temple, it's certainly worthwhile, and that's going to be where
9
you
a.m.
sign in.
9 a.m., sign in, juice, coffee, sweet rolls, and then the Spencer Main Street tour of upper level will kick off around 10 o'clock. So we host that there at the Masonic Temple. They asked us to do that now, I don't know how many times. It's kind of a nice, it's not on Grand Avenue, but it's a nice place to kick that program off and see other locations. Our Main Street program really has tried to bring this to light, some of the properties, so we're glad to do that.
Steve, I hear very little about the activities of the Masons or the Shriners, what they're doing. No articles in the paper about what they've been doing or presentations or anybody that I know is being asked to join. Are you just being that inactive?
Well, it's always been a quiet organization, Merlin, and recently they've always hosted the 5th grade classes. We provide transportation to Sioux City to the Shrine Circus every year, and that's quietly the organization provides their tickets to the high school or the grade school, and they chauffeur those kids down to Sioux City each year. And like this activity we just had, we're individuals attended that here in Spencer. A lot of those things are not publicized, but they have their purpose is, of course, the Masonic organization. You go from there into York Rite or the Scottish Rite, and their main goal is to support the orthopedic burn hospitals. There's 7 of them throughout the United States, and the closest one we have here is Minneapolis. And so a lot of times we're not able to share that because of the HIPAA laws about the individuals that are utilizing those services, but that is ongoing throughout the year all the time. So we're not able to publish that, the names of those individuals that are utilizing the hospital. And then we'll have the Shrine football game in July again in Cedar Falls. You have a football player from Spencer High School and 6 cheerleaders that have been selected to participate in that. I think there was a photograph in this Daily Reporter with those 7 individuals. So there's activities going on. Try and get it in the newspaper as often as we can. Kathy, any questions?
I was just thinking about, you talk about secret meetings or quiet meetings, and I remember that my sister-in-law, Christy Sue Stauffer, who's Christy Sue Schuster now, but she was being inducted, I believe, into something Eastern Star, and my mom was late. Like, I wasn't very late, but I was too late, and they'd already shut the door, and they wouldn't let me in, and I couldn't get to see Christy Sue get whatever she was doing because she was late and didn't get it done. But that's part of being on time and being, I mean, your organization does things like
attend
that.
those meetings. We'll get in trouble now, won't we, Kathy? Okay.
And Steve, you talked to decline, and I became a Mason 64, 65, and Keith Byers, who ran Arnold Motor Supply, was the master of the lodge. And I mean, you talk different declining deal. And Glenn, I can remember your dad. These people were really proficient in their degree work, but the year I started out, I got talked into by Keith starting out through the chairs, and you play workup. So I was the junior steward, and the junior steward is charged with providing the lunch after the meetings. And we had 54 communications one year. 54. I got to the point I was going to Joe Carroll and buying banana cream pies. I was trying to get fired. I mean, out of this deal. But I mean, if you can imagine, and that's, I think, probably one of the heydays of Masonry in Spencer. It was the thing to do and the place to be.
Well, it was, according to Catherine Johnston, back in that era. They look forward to it when the middle school and high school was across the street going to those teen dances. It was about the formal activity in Spencer because you didn't have all the competition with other organizations. So the young individuals look forward to their outing over there, I guess, according to her. She thoroughly enjoyed that. So it was a very active center of activities. That being said, thank you again.
Well done. Good job.
Looks nice. Your mic on?
Oh, yeah, I hope.
Be careful.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. I will remind you that next Tuesday night is the next in this lecture series, and something that, as a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, we had a really cold tour of the cemetery with Kevin Robinson and, is it Ed Lauber? His new associate. And what's gone on at Riverside Cemetery is absolutely incredible. And the history there, Maureen, I got to beg your memory, how many Civil War veterans are buried in Riverside Cemetery?
We thought we had 160, but we had a duplicate in the record. Is that there are 159 members who had fought, who had seen battle in the U.S. Civil War and came out here for opportunity. So,
But, you know, Kevin, having been the last mayor, I don't know when he found the time to do all the research. Now, as the superintendent of both Riverside and North Lawn, but it'll be a fascinating program, and hope as many of you can make it. But again, thank you all for your attendance. Thank you again, Steve. It was a great program. Without any further ado, unless anybody's got anything else, we're adjourned.